Welcome to Aston Means Business, SMEs adapting to COVID-19 challenges. I'm Steve Dyson, the journalist presenting this regular podcast for Aston Business School. Our podcasts are focused on the huge economic disruption caused by the coronavirus pandemic. And we're talking to businesses who've been involved with various programmes at Aston Centre for Growth and elsewhere here at Aston University. They'll discuss their challenges, share their experiences, and explain how they're adapting to the new business world emerging in the wake of the pandemic. We'll also be interviewing some of Aston's top academics and experts, getting their valuable insight, analysis and advice for SMEs. This episode is looking at how a start-up business launched by Joe Poxon, an undergraduate student here at Aston, has dealt with COVID-19. And joining us to comment on Joe's experience is Professor Kate Sugden. Kate is the Deputy Dean at the School of Engineering and Applied Science at Aston University, and that's where Joe has risen to the challenge of adapting to the lockdown economy. Hello to you, Kate.
Hi, Steve. It's great to join you.
Thanks very much. Please bear with us as we're still carrying out all our recordings remotely online to make sure we conform to the government's self-distancing advice. Joining me online now is Joe Poxon. Joe's the founder of Rugged Nature and he's just completed his degree in product design and management in the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences at Aston University. Hello to you, Joe.
Hi, Steve. How are you doing?
Joe, tell me a bit more about Rugged Nature in terms of what it does, what gave you the idea, and what's unique about it.
Absolutely. So Rugged Nature was started when I realised that my mother was really suffering with her asthma when my brother was putting hair products in the morning. And off the back of that, we realised there must be a more natural alternative to the heavily scented chemical commercial products out there for male grooming. So I had a quick look online and I found a lot of products that were like that, but they were all centered towards female like users. There's nothing really for the male market in that sort of space. So we put our heads together, me and my brother. He's a chemistry student and I'm a product design student. So we developed some formulas, and after 6 months of trial and error, testing different formulas, we managed to get them approved. So we went through all the regulatory testing process. And we took them to market. And so, now we manufacture in-house still, handmade, 100% natural male grooming products.
Great. And just before we go into your company in a bit more detail, tell us a bit about your degree. I mean, you're studying product design and management. So describe how that's helped you to launch a business at the same time as studying.
Part of the business, when it stopped being so much like a thing I was doing on the side, like a hobby selling on eBay, and actually made it into a business, that was actually part of my university placement year. So I did 6 months in Australia on a study abroad, but then when I came back, I did 6 months as an enterprise placement running my business under BC at Aston Uni. It's like their enterprise division sort of thing. But my degree itself in product design, obviously the products themselves, the packaging, the aesthetic of the brand, it all kind of comes under what I've been doing as part of my degree over the last 3 or 4 years. So it has really helped in that regard.
And briefly, how was your company, which is a startup of course, but how was it doing in terms of revenue and turnover? How was it doing before COVID-19 hit us and we entered the lockdown with shops closing, etc.?
So we were on a very upward trajectory. We were doing really well. We were gaining a lot more shops. We were just about to start going into negotiations with some distributors and some really big clients. And unfortunately, when the lockdown hit, a lot of that dried up. People didn't really know what was happening. They had a lot more other priorities, I guess, than bringing on new lines at the moment. So we were doing really well. And the lockdown did kind of hit our bottom line quite heavily, especially in the sort of wholesale direct to shop sort of department.
So it was a bit of a nightmare, really, for a startup like yourself at that stage, getting growing revenues to suddenly have no marketplace.
Yeah, absolutely. It pretty much dropped to zero in the space of a couple of days, which is interesting to say the least.
Now, I understand that Rugged Nature qualified for an emergency advertising fund set up by media owner Ocean Outdoor. And that was set up to help small businesses during the coronavirus outbreak. Tell us about that scheme and how you've qualified and what that's done for you.
I was looking on the Birmingham City Council website for the sort of government help for businesses. There's a lot of that going around for small businesses during coronavirus. But unfortunately, we didn't qualify for any of them owing to various different policies not really being relevant to ourselves. We don't have a physical location. We don't have any staff to furlough, so none of that really helped. But they did have a little thing on the page, the web page for that, about Ocean Outdoor, who, as a result of presumably a drop off in paid for customers for their billboards, they were offering free advertising space to small companies like hit by the coronavirus. So I filled an application, told them what happened, and Stephanie from Ocean Outdoor got straight back to me, really liked the story, really liked the brand, had a look on the website, and they gave me, I think it was 10 billboards across 6 cities for a week, like big digital billboards, which was really quite cool.
And that would have been worth quite a lot of money, wouldn't it?
Yeah, so I think the value they put on it was about £52,000 worth of free advertising, which is obviously a lot of money and not something we would not something we would have at all been able to afford without it being freely available.
And tell me about the advert. I mean, obviously a billboard is a billboard, but how did you go about getting a brand and a design and photographs, etc.? How did that work?
Yeah, so absolutely. As soon as I found out we were going to be getting the billboards, we started brainstorming ideas. And I think it was my mum actually who came up with the idea of, obviously in lockdown, a lot of people are doing things over the internet, video calls. And there's always that sort of classic cliche of, if you're having an online interview, you wear a suit from the top up and then nothing on the bottoms. So we kind of, for the main billboard, we kind of played on that. So I got myself a big red pair of boxer shorts and put myself in a nice suit up top, did a photo shoot, got my girlfriend to take the photos. And so, yeah, the big billboard was me sitting in my underwear on massive digital billboards all over the UK, which was an interesting sight to see. I went and visited a few of the billboards, so that was pretty fun for me.
Fantastic. I mean, hopefully we'll show a picture of that on the university website when the podcast gets broadcast. That's wonderful. So I mean, you really were doing it yourself, and in the same way that your company is 100% sustainable. You weren't going out to model agencies and getting people to trial and travel, and you just got your trousers off, basically, your red shorts on, and did the stuff yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the term's bootlegging it, and we've tried to do that the whole time throughout this business. It's pretty much all been bootlegged. So yeah, and we didn't have the funds to hire agents, models, and we also didn't have the time or the ability with lockdown happening. It was just had to grab a camera and go for it, really.
Well done you, and well done your girlfriend as well for taking the pictures. That sounds great. Now, obviously that was one thing that you did, and you had advertising across those cities on 10 billboards worth £50,000. That sounds magnificent. Did it do anything for you? Have you seen an uptake in your website visits, etc., or your sales?
To coincide with that billboard program, we thought, well, we need to have a really decent website. We did have a website previously, but it didn't really have an online shopping facility because we'd really been focused on the wholesale. So we rebuilt our website using Shopify, so a different provider. And yeah, since we've turned over to that website provider, and since we've had the billboards, we've definitely seen an uptick in the sort of direct to consumer sales. Which is obviously really good because that's a really helpful side to our business, to our more wholesale business, because that hasn't dropped off at all. People are still buying things. People are buying things online. It really did help sort of direct traffic towards the website. It was a big pivot we had to make quite quickly, but it's helped keep the business afloat.
It sounds like you're doing quite a lot to help your business to carry on developing. You've looked around, you found these funds, you've done the adverts yourself, you've rebuilt a website, you're developing your direct-to-consumer service. What else have you had to do to help your business to survive?
So we've also applied for a grant through Santander universities, through the university itself. And that grant was applied for on the basis and is going to be used for growing our range. So we currently only have a range of 4 products, and we've had that since the business began just over a year ago. And we really need to survive, really. We need to grow that range and maybe even move into a female market at some point in the future. So getting cosmetic products tested and legal to sell in the UK is quite a lengthy and quite an expensive process. So we applied for that grant and we got it. So we're currently in the process of formulating still. We're having lots of different iterations, mixing together different products, and hopefully we'll be able to bring a much expanded range, and hopefully in time for a big trade fair that we have planned for the NEC at the beginning of September, if it goes ahead.
That's really useful. So what was that grant worth from Santander?
It was 1,500.
So basically, for a startup, quite an amount of money which you don't have to spend yourself on developing, improving, and getting the legal ticks for new products.
Yeah, absolutely. It certainly helped the cash flow. Whilst we were also investing quite heavily in stock at the moment, so keeping our stock levels really high. We have had a few large orders in the past, and we've struggled to fulfill them just because of stock availability. So as opposed to buying 30 accessories at a time from the wholesaler, we're now sort of buying 100. So we hold a large amount of stock, so we can provide a large amount of stock quickly. And we wouldn't be able to do that if we hadn't had the grant, because we'd have spent all the money we're now spending on that on getting the products tested.
I understand. Now, Joe, you're one of many thousands of startups that would have been in their very early stages when COVID-19 hit the UK. And yet you've carried on trading and you've been successful in finding funds to help, whether it be the advertising or the funds to help you develop products. And that's brilliant. But in terms of the actual way that you've approached the business and the way that you are determined to carry on, what top tips do you have for other startups that might be struggling? How can they learn from your experience?
Just find loads of people are willing to help. There's the government, universities, places like the Prince's Trust. There's hundreds and hundreds of schemes out there, and I think there's a government website that actually lists all the schemes. I think the government's very willing to help startups and innovative companies, because at the end of the day, they need those companies for the economy. There's loads of people willing to help. You just need to find them, apply with a decent amount of enthusiasm, I guess. Don't do a half-assed job of it. Just actually really spend time and apply properly to these schemes. And more often than not, people are really on board with it and really willing to help. And it's just a perseverance thing. It's just a keep applying, apply for 10, get 2. It's as simple as that. And I guess just don't sleep, and you'll work it out eventually.
Joe, many thanks for joining us for today's podcast, and we wish you the very best for future success with Rugged Nature.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Steve.
Still with me is Professor Kate Sugden, the Deputy Dean at the School of Engineering and Applied Science at Aston University. Kate, it sounds like Joe Poxon has done really well on his product design and management course, especially given the onset of COVID-19. He started Rugged Nature during his studies, and since March has not only completed his degree, but he's also successfully accessed funding to help him continue trading. He's a bit of a star, isn't he?
Indeed. I continue to be impressed with the capabilities of our students, but Joe has done particularly well in juggling the competing demands of his final year and getting a new business up and running.
It certainly sounds as if what he learned on his course has helped Joe to consider the crisis he found himself in, pivoting his business to serve consumers direct once the wholesale market effectively closed down.
Absolutely. Joe has identified a market opportunity that has a good synergy with the current times when people are worried about their breathing. The product design and management course that he's been studying will have encouraged him to look for opportunities. It's designed to equip students with the fundamental design skills and engineering knowledge alongside business and management content such as branding and intellectual property and product development. And Joe has shown that he's taken on board these concepts, but also that he's not afraid to rethink things if something fundamental such as the business environment changes. And this is really important in business.
The funds that Joe found to help his efforts were crucial too, weren't they? I mean, he won free advertising worth more than £50,000 from Ocean Outdoor, and he also won product development funding from Santander. Is this kind of funding rare, or are there many such avenues for early stage startups?
I would say that 50,000 is quite a large amount of money or funding to win for a student enterprise at this stage. But a number of our students have received smaller amounts of funding to support their enterprise activities, and things like the Santander scheme are particularly important for this. There are also companies that have been started by students or recent graduates that have received significantly larger investments, but they tend to spend longer getting to that point. So Joe's done really well to accelerate his business in this way.
No, it certainly has. What else has the School of Engineering and Applied Science at Aston helped Joe with, and other student-led businesses during the pandemic?
I'd say this isn't something that only happens during a pandemic. We strongly encourage our students to do a placement year, which gives them a good understanding of the commercial world, and they can form their own businesses during that year to gain the necessary experience. We also have design staff and indeed staff across the school that have entrepreneurship and management backgrounds and who are very happy to support students in these activities. I think the school has a good culture of working with businesses in general and developing an entrepreneurship career for our students. For example, we work with students when they're doing their projects to allow them to develop their own ideas further, and also encourage them to tap into organisations such as Be Seen that can support early stage business development. So within Aston as a whole, there's quite a lot of touch points where students can gain help and advice for growing businesses. And I think because they've got a number of students that have gone before them, they've got a lot of role models they can also look at to help.
Yeah, it sounds an obvious question to ask, but is starting and running a business something that you encourage and have plenty of examples of on the product design and management degree?
Yes, of course. Design and business are interlinked if you want to create value. And by developing new businesses, we can support our community because ultimately it creates new jobs down the road. The programme itself aims to produce highly capable graduates with good design skills and a good business sense. And in fact, we're building on this and have recently developed a new 4-year MSci Design, Enterprise and Innovation course, which is jointly delivered by Engineering and the Business School. So on top of the design and engineering skills that the students will gain, starting and running a business will be a specific focus in the second half of this degree. So we're hoping to accelerate activity in this area and support more students to form their own businesses.
Well, that sounds great. COVID-19, it's been a challenging time for many people in the business world, Kate, but it must be even more difficult for people considering setting up. So do you think that people should still be considering startups, not just your students, but other startup business people as well? And if so, during this emergence from the lockdown, what top tips can you offer them on how to adapt their businesses to the new normal?
I would say absolutely people should be considering startups. COVID-19 will bring in lots of change, and with this, lots of opportunities and gaps in the market. My advice would be to take time to understand what you're offering and who your customers are and what they really need. Don't be too precious about your ideas. Be confident about inviting some critical friends to really challenge your thinking so that you can get a successful product or service out there. People rarely have the right idea in the first time round. And lastly, don't give up. Plans will change, opportunities will evolve, and things will go wrong. So you'll need a lot of resilience to make it a success. It's not an instant out of the box thing that you can expect to happen with no problems along the way.
Well, that's a great set of advice. And thanks very much, Professor Kate Sugden, the Deputy Dean at the School of Engineering and Applied Science at Aston University. It's been great to have you joining us on today's podcast.
It's been a pleasure talking with you, Steve.
Thanks also to Joe Poxon, who we interviewed earlier, the owner of Rugged Nature. And we'll be back soon to find out how other SMEs have adapted to COVID-19. Aston means business. SMEs adapting to COVID-19 challenges. Thanks for listening.